The very idea of human being some sort of natural concept is really going to change.
Our bodies will be so high-tech, we won't be able to really distinguish between what's natural and what's artificial.
Inside our own heads is the most complex arrangement of matter in the known universe.
You might ask yourself, can we get to be superhumans?
Hey, Inspire Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. It's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Monday, March 10th, 2025. Out of the Matrix into Prime Reality. That's the mantra here. Thank you for joining us on X, Rumble, and YouTube. Everyone in the live chat. Christine is the wise thumbs as inspired in the live chat. I don't know if Ronnie's here today, our wonderful moderator. We haven't seen her yet. Today, we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into what comes after the information war, specifically the digital information war. Depending on how long you've been in the truth/freedom/alternative media/conspiracy community, whatever you want to call it, you will have noticed that we have been engaged in an informational war in the digital space over many years, that has exponentially intensified over the last 5 years. But I would say it's been a well-defined war since the 2000s. And then in the 2010s, where it was getting more and more intense. But the catalyst event of the great pandemic of 2020 and onward was really the exponential, explosion of the digital battlefield. And this is coming, in my perception, in my observation, slowly. It's coming to an end. I think it's almost over, and I'll explain why, and then we'll go into what comes after, which is actually more important than the digital war itself. Fundamentally speaking, the technology, the algorithms used, the AI algorithms used and implemented in this digital battlefield have become the deciding factor. So, because more and more people are consuming information on fewer and fewer platforms, even though there are alternatives, but really it is less of reading websites, less of finding information through traditional search engines, which were already algorithmically driven, but more of discovering information because of suggestion. Okay, so this is a different, fewer people are actually looking for things. They are, through their behavior, training the algorithms, and the algorithms then suggest information for them to discover. And this is now so sophisticated and so well trained that it is designed to keep people, it will give them great truth in many ways, but it is designed to keep them scrolling rather than to get them going. You know what I mean? That's kind of the idea here, to keep people in the digital realm. And that's our ability to beat, trick, or influence the algorithms in a way so that truthful voices can come through will become much more diminished as this is more and more centralized. That's just an expected nature of this game, and we knew it was going to happen. I thought that we maybe might have 5 years left. I don't see that now. I see 2 more, maybe 2 years. The only way that this could really, not come to fruition would be if autonomous AI would take charge and change the algorithms accordingly for the benefit of the human family. And in the current control environment, I just don't see that happening, but that is a possibility, clearly. So then, if we have a few years left on the digital battlefield, and we need to use them to the best of our abilities, that's been our mantra. If we're going to show up, we're going to show up as best as we can, provide the information that, we can only go by our intuition that we deem as important and helpful, and keep this going. But there will come a day in the near future where this will come to an end, or it will be completely fruitless. It won't have, it won't have any effect anymore. And the people that were going to be reached are going to be reached, and the other people will never be reached through that. So then the question is, what comes after? The digital battlefield, and I call it a digital battlefield because that's what it is. Every social, we might use it to inspire people, but that's part of it. We might use it to show something that's beautiful or truthful or important, but it is, from the perspective of those who created it, it's the battlefield, right? So it was never intended to be a space that we live in, that we spend our days and nights and, from our perspective. I think many of us reluctantly said, okay, we're going to use it for the highest good as long as we can. And that's sort of why we chose to take the path that we took. And I think bless you, my love. Please don't apologize. And I think we made the right choice, and it never felt wrong. But then what do we do with that? All the information that we were able to share very quickly with each other, all the exchange of thought and ideas, now need to really take root in the physical realm. So what is the goal? And to me and to us, we have come to the understanding that the real goal is to help create the optimal conditions for consciousness to rise. Why? Because if we just speak about, freedom as an abstract or self-sufficiency as a goal, that doesn't necessarily mean that consciousness is on a higher level. Self-sufficiency has existed before on a greater scale, and that didn't mean that people were at a higher level of consciousness automatically, right? So what are these optimal conditions? And I want to dive into that a little bit, because I think that's what we're going to have to focus on now, parallel to the still ongoing information campaign, and especially then moving forward, as we will, I believe, undoubtedly, many of us will leave the current digital space, because we're not going to be compromising our values to be there, and it's going to be so tightly controlled that we won't accept that. There might be an alternative. We don't know that yet, but the truth is, we don't want to be here in perpetuity. It's about creating better conditions in life so that consciousness can truly awaken and recognize itself again, right? So this is why I wanted to share this with you here, which is, optimal conditions for raising consciousness. What can we do? And there's going to be some bigger things that might not be doable for everyone right now. And then there's going to be some things that everyone can do right now, regardless of their current situation, which I think is important. So this is one that everyone can easily do. Inner stillness and meditation, regular silence, contemplation, and self-inquiry. I mean, this is something we have been promoting, inspiring, hopefully, and encouraging people to do for many years. It's a constant. And think of how people used to live in, just 100 years ago. It wasn't uncommon for people to, out of sheer necessity, to keep wearing light a fire at night. in the fireplace. And so what people would do, they would sit there and stare into the fire. It was a meditative space. It was a contemplation space. It was a reflection space, you know. Now that we stare into the digital fire of the screens, that usually doesn't happen anymore. And that's something we need to choose. Emotional healing, releasing trauma, suppressed emotions, karmic imprints, releasing karma itself, you know, choosing karma. And this thought sort of came to me the other day, is karma is the algorithm of life. And it's literally an AI algorithm. Like, it's not just an allegory. Karma is the algorithm of life. And it dictates our journey in this life, in this realm, until we choose otherwise, until we choose to override the program. So clearing past wounds, you know, from lower frequency energies, conscious language and thought patterns, shifting from negativity, fear, and judgment to empowerment, neutrality, and unconditional love. These are things, you know, that are your what, not just what happens during your morning practice and evening practice, but what happens during the day, you know. And it is a, you know, once you go through the healing stages of transmuting trauma, we need to teach ourselves again, you know, what language are we using? When are we speaking? When are we being quiet? All those things. It's creating and reharmonizing with more authentic patterns. Gratitude and appreciation practices, you know, daily focus on higher emotional states like love, joy, peace, and gratitude to rewire your nervous system. We have learned and created many gratitude practices over the years. One of our favorite practices was the gratitude walk, where we would walk 2-3 miles and take turns expressing what we're grateful for. No limitations, no rules other than you're not allowed to judge the other person's center of gratitude, if you will. So, you know, that's a wonderful practice. You won't believe. You take a walk with someone, your child, your grandchild, your partner, your friend, whatever, and you introduce that game. After a little while, I mean, it's addictive, you know. It's addictive to think and express what you're grateful for and share it with each other. And it's like an amplifier, you know. You're literally spiraling up with that other person. And by the time you're home from your walk, you're like, oh my goodness, I mean, I feel so elevated. And it's just through becoming aware. Why? Because emotional mastery removes resistance and allows access to higher vibrational states. That is just, you know, that is just a given. High consciousness fields, you know, living, working, and interacting in high vibrational environments. Those that you choose, you know, that you can choose, natural settings, sacred sites if you can, or consciously cultivated energetic spaces like FLFE, you know, that we talk about often, which is bringing the sacred site to your home. Wonderful, right? Nature and earth connection, deep integration with natural surroundings, reducing exposure to artificial EMFs, toxins, and urban overstimulation. As a matter of fact, if you can, I'm not saying panic, be fearful or anything, but if you can, plan your exit from the big cities. Even if you are choosing a suburb of a city, you're going to have a multiple 100% increase in life quality. We just had a long conversation the other day with our friend Tim Ray from United Intentions Media, and he is, you know, he always has his EMF meter with him, and he's where he lives. It's not too far. It's not incredibly far from Atlanta. Maybe 40 minutes, I would say. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, not, yeah, 40 minutes max, yeah.
And where he is in his environment, there he can get down, especially if he turns off his own internet, he can get down to almost zero, you know, or very, very little EMF. But as soon as he gets closer to downtown Atlanta, which is the same in every urban area in America and other nations, of course, his meter goes, I mean, in the red zone and stays in the red zone. And he says that has changed over the last years. It didn't used to be like that. It was of course, higher, but this is red zone, 24/7 danger zone, and it's being increased every day. That alone is a reason to, if you can, plan on, leaving the urban areas, because with the smart city implementation, that's only going to get exponentially worse. And in those urban areas, you're more likely to get some, in higher concentration areas, you're more likely to get some good old shedding, and even maybe get some foreign DNA into you, that you might not want to have. Sacred spaces and architecture. Living in homes and structures designed with sacred geometry, natural materials, and conscious energy flow, like Feng Shui or the Kin's domain principles of creation of spaces. Now, this is not accessible to everyone right now, but as a vision, it is accessible. As a dream, maybe, as something that you might be able to focus on. And you can learn about some of the principles that you can shift in your own home right now. It is, you won't believe what happens when you study this and you start setting things up for a better flow, and that's not woo woo, that everything is energy. So you're either working with the flow of energy or you're working against it. And to learn that, for example, is to create better conditions for higher consciousness. Minimalism and decluttering. Keeping physical and energetic spaces clean, clear, and high vibrational. And this is something that Christine and I have practiced for many, many years now. Decluttering in every way, but materially also. Just making sure that your spaces are not all clogged up. And also what that tells us about ourselves when we are so attached to material things that we open up a drawer and there's an object in there that we haven't used in 3 years, and we say, no, I got to keep that. Really? I don't think so. If you haven't used it in 3 years, chances are, if it's not a passport, that you might not need it. And so, but somebody might, to someone that might be the object that they can use right now. So decluttering, clean, and also, without judgment. But if your space is dirty, messy, and clogged up, that usually means that it represents sort of a little bit of an inner state, of chaos. And sometimes, starting with one drawer or one cabinet or one shelf can really help you also in your inner journey by, okay, I was able to get this done, a little more order. Very important. Truth seeking and discernment, it's probably what we do here together, don't we? Widespread awakening to media manipulation, false narratives, and control mechanisms. I mean, this is something that is incredibly important because the space of optimal conditions for higher consciousness requires truth. It can't be rooted in falsehoods or even half truths. It just doesn't work that way. So that's why when people say this is something we shouldn't pay too much attention to, I strongly disagree. Until we get to the bottom of these deceptions, we're participating in them without even knowing it, because they're very, very sophisticated deceptions. Freedom from fear-based programming, right? Transmuting guilt, shame, societal conditioning, and fear-based ideologies. Guilt and shame, and anxiety. Guilt, shame are usually our emotional triggers into the past, and anxiety is our emotional trigger into the future, which keeps us, everywhere but in the present. So guilt and shame simply require forgiveness. They do, and sometimes it's literally saying in the mirror, looking in the mirror and saying, I forgive you. And it might feel cringy, or you might not believe it at first, and it might feel off. Well, keep repeating it, keep looking into your eyes and giving yourself forgiveness. Maybe you didn't treat yourself good. Maybe you were beating yourself up about something, or have this very, very toxic self-talk that we were all taught, by the way. We were taught to do that. And they meant well, but it didn't work out well. And that is extremely important. because it clears the space. And clearing space is like automatically you have a jump in consciousness when you clear those inner and outer spaces. Self-sufficiency, decentralization, reducing reliance on corrupt institutions, and they are all corrupt, and all 90% at least, and reclaiming personal autonomy. You know, this is consciousness can only rise so high without autonomy, without self-sufficiency, without you being in charge of the decisions and of the processes of your own life. There's only so much higher consciousness that you can rise to without that. Living from intuition and inner knowing. This is probably the number one, because it kind of facilitates all the others, is shifting from external authority to inner divine guidance, and it truly is divinity, right? And that intuition is, we actually see this. We see the difference in young people, and our children that was one of the hallmarks of their upbringing, was no matter where you are, no matter what someone says, I don't care who that someone is, your teacher, some authority figure, I don't care. You have to trust your intuition. And that means you could be looking forward to something for a month. And when that day comes and something inside of you tells you no, you don't go, you don't do that. And I mean, we have so many stories, you know. We just talked about it with our middle daughter, Kiara, the other day, where she said, I remember a couple of times my friend that I used to hang out with and their family, you know, every weekend, and they wanted me to come, and I was looking forward to coming with them. And then the night before, I just I felt off, and they called, come with us. And she said no. And they were in an accident that day. You know, it's just, those things are those are such powerful stories. And on the flip side, if you trust intuition over and over again, it becomes something natural again, something normal, and you don't even second guess it any longer. Listen, collective consciousness is kept low through deception. Deception in and of itself is extremely low vibrational energy. The energy of deception is low, and people believing deceptions is feeding that, right? It's keeping, so that's why we're so passionate about the truth, and not accepting sort of 70% or 80% of it, but 100% of it. Tribe-based living, and tribe might be, you know, such a maybe a triggering word, but communities, you know, conscious communities based on love, wisdom, and self-sufficiency rather than economic dependency. Think about it. We are a society that lives together in villages, towns, cities, based entirely on economic interdependency. Now, if those economics don't work anymore, what do? We pack up and leave and go where the economy's better, where the cities are booming and the economy's thriving. But let me ask you this. What if a community wasn't based on that, but it was actually based on co-creation rather than competition? You know, if it was based on accelerating the exchange of wisdom and actionable knowledge rather than withholding that from each other because we have scarcity thinking. Oh my God, if I teach that to those people, then they might overshadow me, or they might make more money than me, or they might put me out of business. That is one system born from a inverted consciousness, scarcity, satanic thinking, literally. And that's the MO for the entire world today. But there's so many other ways to do this. And greed and jealousy and envy simply don't have to be a part of it. But that requires a raising of our consciousness. We can't fake it. We have to get there, you know, on a consciousness level. Supportive, authentic connections, relationships based on genuine connection, presence, and mutual upliftment. I mean, you can you can't even underestimate, if you're in an environment with people where you, through actions and affection and love and conversations over a couple of days, are in a constant state of upliftment because of it. It's so beautiful. And when we experience that, we wonder why we ever do anything else but that. Why would we ever, sort of put each other down and hit each other over the head and make each other feel useless, small? It, it is a shift, and when that shift happens internally, it expresses in our world. It's beautiful. Healing masculine and feminine dynamics, restoring divine balance between men and women, dismantling societal programming that divides them, which are the only two options, by the way, are the feminine energy and the masculine energy. There aren't 73 other particular states, and the words gender or sex don't really describe that, by the way. These are principles of creation, and it's if you will, the yin and the yang, if you want to call it that. You want to call it perfect polarity or duality, which, if it works in union, that's when the division and the warring stops, right? When those principles work together. There's a sort of a current theme in our thinking that the optimal conditions are to remove the darkness. I don't think that is actually the correct way of thinking about this. It is actually to bring what we perceive to be light and dark into perfect balance again, into unity again, into harmony again, where these polarities don't play out in a destructive way, but they harmonize in a creative way. Living unprocessed, high energy food while we're in these bodies, eating organic, natural, high vibrational foods, sun ripened fruits, wild plants, herbs, raw honey, pure water, naturally grown meat, eliminating toxins and artificial compounds completely. Like, we have no necessity for artificial anything in our food. Like, there's no necessity. That was only introduced to lower our vibration, lower our consciousness, and keep us sick, looking for external help. Fasting and cellular regeneration, practicing intermittent fasting, water fasting, and breatharian states when ready. So we're, the principle of breatharianism, meaning you don't, all the energy that you need for the body to do its processes, you receive from the ether. I think there's a few informational pieces missing, and I would encourage everyone to read the Ringing Cedars books to understand what that actually means, that in our natural, authentic environment, there were so many nutrients in the air because nature was configured in a way that all the nutrients would be basically in the air. So breathing, it wasn't like we needed to focus heavily on specific breath work. We would just receive the nutrients that we needed from the air, literally, and that was it. We would never think about having to prepare food or harvest food or grow food. It's just, it's wonderful when that knowledge comes back. And then, global shifts in consciousness. And this is also something we cannot force. We can only trigger through the things that I just said previously. And a worldwide, if you will, shift in consciousness doesn't mean 50, 60, 70%. It only means that a critical mass is raising their consciousness faster and cleaner and better than ever before, and the rest is positively affected. That's more realistic than thinking that 50, 60% of the population are going to jump on board with all these practices. That's, for now, not a realistic scenario. The meditation, prayer, energy healing, and inner transformation, reestablishing that as societal norms. And I sort of, I used to be, when I went into these allopathic environment, hospitals, doctors' offices, and not just for my own, but I was visiting someone or talking to doctors, or I used to sort of hold back. I'm now very, very open about this. You know, it's not that I don't appreciate their education, but it's literally just a small slice of the pie. And so I asked them if they have any knowledge of the other pieces of the pie, and if they don't have any knowledge, I'm not gonna. I would never let them advise me on anything. And so to bring back holistic everything, bring that back as a norm, not as an alternative or as one modality, but as the modality. Unified intention for truth and love, humanity choosing a harmonious, love-based reality over competition and separation, breaking out of the illusion matrix, widespread deconstruction of limiting beliefs about reality, existence, and human potential. And this is why we are creating conversations around subjects not for entertainment purposes, not to sort of just give different opinions, but to get to the root of it, to get to the truth of it. Because when we get to the truth of it, and hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people can see the truth about something, we create a unified field of higher consciousness, and that accelerates the collective liberation. Wherever we get to the truth of things, it helps everyone. That's the field, right? And so after enough energy is produced or harvested in the right way and harnessed in the right way, it affects the entire populace. It affects every conscious being. Here are things you can do right now, very simply. Practice gratitude daily. You don't need any money for that. Choose love over fear. It is a daily choice to focus more into love and face your fear when it shows up, and face it with love and look where it's coming from, and start the process of transmuting it. Transmuting resentment, like I said before, give yourself permission to heal and forgive yourself, and if necessary, forgive others, not giving them absolution for their actions, not saying that balance and justice don't need to be a part of it, but let yourself off the hook of being a continuous victim of their whatever, abuse, crime, violence. If it happened 10 years ago, at some point, don't continue to be a victim. And that requires conscious choices and healing processes. Breathe consciously. Very, very important. Think of multiple times a day to breathe deeply into your entire being. You will feel amazing. Declutter and clean your space. We talked about it. Spend time in nature. Use natural light. Open windows. I don't know. There's a tendency in this nation that opening windows is a dangerous thing. Not that the air is very fresh, but it's fresher than it's inside for the most part, unless you have great purification systems. But fresh air really is a healer. Light, as much as we can get. When there's a sunny day, stick that beautiful face of yours in the sun, and just let it permeate your being. Limit news and social media. Be conscious about the use of it. Read or listen to high vibe content, things that align with your spirit. Drink clean water, eat simple natural foods. For some reason, people think that eating healthy is extremely expensive. It's conscious. It's when you learn about it, it's not because it's simple ingredients. Go to a farmer's market, look around, stay away from anything that required a lot of processing. Look at the pure ingredients, look at the fruit, look at the vegetable, look at the meat, ask where they were grown, ask the people how it was treated. If you stick to those simple things, you can produce wonderful meals at a reasonable cost. Of course, if you can grow it, that's even better. Meditate for at least 5 minutes a day. It will change your life. Healing frequencies, if you listen to those, you find good sources on YouTube. It's not the ideal medium, but it's available. And there's some wonderful healing frequencies out there. Walk barefoot. The difference between you being in nature and having rubber soles and literally being isolated from the earth versus you being in your bare feet and grounding, that is, I promise you, 20 minutes a day of real grounding. And then, of course, you can sleep on a grounding sheet and all of that, but just doing that will accelerate your natural healing tremendously, and by default, raise your consciousness. Surround yourself with high consciousness people, HCPs, not NPCs, HCPs. Spend time with kind, uplifting people. Make that choice. And if those are not immediately available, I mean, it's better to be alone for a little bit than to be with people that bring you down or are aggressive or violent in their usage of words and energies. Practice kindness daily. It's acts of love and compassion towards others. They are helped, but you're helped too. I mean, how good does it feel when you can do something that takes a minute out of your day but improves someone else's day greatly, helps them greatly? A simple thing: get out of the car when there's a lot of traffic, and let's say an old couple wants to cross the street. It's so fast, everything is so confusing these days, lights and everything's loud, and man, get out of the car, stop traffic for a little bit, let them cross. I mean, it's going to make their day, and you're going to be glad you did it. Simple things. Speak with intention, or don't speak at all. If nothing bothers me more these days than useless yapping, sitting there and just talking for the sake of talking. It's draining, and it's a sickness of our society to have to fill every moment of silence with useless, stupid yapping. It's like, it's probably one of the worst things, and I just refuse to engage in that. Small talk, it's literally like torture to me. Small talk has become torture to me. Beyond the 3-minute mark of small talk, I have to excuse myself, and because this is not natural to us. We weren't meant to yap all the time. We weren't meant to disturb each other's thoughts all the time. If there's something wonderful to share with each other, or important or inspiring or truthful, authentic, sure. But beyond that, gossip. If you want to lower your consciousness in 5 minutes or less, gossip. The most useless invention in human history. Essentially talking about other people beyond, hey, I read this book by this person and that's their life story, where you kind of explain because it is very inspiring, but talking about other people usually does nothing.
Are you talking about alcohol?
No, I wasn't specifically talking about alcohol, but any mind-altering substance.
Because someone is saying alcohol is a daily part of lives in blue zones.
Yeah, that's true. Alcohol is
But there's no benefit to it.
yeah, let me finish this here now. Please remind me, I'll get to alcohol once we get there. Believe that small steps matter. Raising consciousness doesn't require money at all, by the way. It just requires commitment. And here's a bonus. And I put this bonus here because I say right up there, it doesn't require money. Now, this doesn't only require money, but there's an added benefit if you try it. And even if you don't subscribe later on, which is totally fine, you will have a lasting benefit from, and we talked about the FLFE. One of the great, and I put it in yellow here, one of the great things that happens when you start that free trial of a high consciousness field in your home is that the negative energy of your home and the land is cleared during that free trial. So even if you stop after that free trial, that is a lasting effect on your life. That, I mean, the energy clearing of a house and land is like, that can be the difference between a very challenging life in that space or a very beautiful life. So I would encourage everyone, if for no other reason, to try the FLFE service, because there's no strings attached and you don't need a credit card or anything for that. But it will clear the space that you live in, which I can't think of a more beautiful gift that they could give you. So that's why I put it here. So if you go to highconsciousnessfield.com, then you can start your free trial.
I'll post it.
So that said, I didn't touch on alcohol, psychedelics, mind-altering drugs, and I always get into territory here where, especially on the psychedelics and the mind-altering herbs, and so I'm not against that. I'm saying what I'm usually saying is that when your exploration of consciousness and higher consciousness and expanded awareness depends on them, it is just another thing to depend on, right? So I would say if you learn through discipline and practice to expand your awareness, and you can quickly learn to do that into infinity, by the way, then you might find yourself thinking, oh, well, what would I need those psychedelics for? If you still feel like you want to somehow enhance the journey with it, you're totally free to do that. I'm not speaking out against it. I'm saying my intention is always to learn everything first from within or rediscover it rather than inducing it from something that comes outside of me. So that's just my inclination. And then when it comes to alcohol, this is a big subject. And we just spent a day with our wonderful friend who said, and he was on the consciousness and spiritual and truth journey for many years, very actively. And he said, about a year and a half ago, I went on a 9-day water fast, which also included, of course, no alcohol. And he quit drinking after that because he just wasn't aware of how much fog there was, how much disconnection there was, and hasn't looked back since or regretted it. With alcohol, it's an interesting thing. Alcohol has no redeeming quality for our bodies. Besides you cleaning a wound topically with alcohol, it has no redeeming quality for our bodies. This is an interesting thing. Most things that are bad for you have usually one or two aspects that are also good, but alcohol itself has no redeeming quality. So, for us, it's been, 17, 18 years, so, since having or drinking alcohol. So, I never think about it. I don't miss it. And the greatest expansion journeys have happened after alcohol. In general, this, to bring it full circle back to the initial subject of this show, which is we're almost at the end of the information war. It is time to take all the things that we've learned, whether you're 25 or 85, and put them into practice. Small steps, little by little, every day. Something else, something more. Do what you can with what you have where you are, but do it, right? That's really where we're at. So, in my perception, in my observation, the information war will move, or the information campaign, which we're still helping to uh, teach each other all the things we've forgotten. That's still what we're in. Will move much more into the physical space, into the analog world, and it will be more like, oh my goodness, I just drove out into the country here, and there's this new sort of settlement or village or some sort of homestead, and it looks beautiful because of all the flowers and the gardens and the trees, and people seem to be out with each other, and somebody was singing over there, and another person was selling the most beautiful fruits you've ever seen on the side of the road. So I think it's going to be more of that very soon. And the hardcore digitalists will stay very much in their urban areas. They will become optimized for their way of thinking, and so this is where it needs to go, because this is what truly will help us raise consciousness to a level that we might have never seen here or in a very long time. And you have to know, as a last piece of information on this, is that at the pinnacle of the consciousness scale is truth. That is the highest form of consciousness, is pure truth, which makes perfect sense, because you could say that truth is the substance of creation, right? So this is where the journey in our thinking has to go. We have to ask ourselves every day, is what I am doing ultimately helping helping me to raise my consciousness? Is it removing blocks? Yes. Is it showing me greater truths? Yes. Is it leading me to more compassion, kindness, and love? Yes. Does it make me want to live in greater harmony? Yes. Then if you can answer those questions with yes, you're moving towards higher consciousness. If the answers are no, then then on the spectrum you're moving lower down, which is the lower you move, the further away you move from creation, and you actually move to distortion, confusion, destruction, which is of course the dominating force in our world today still. So that is and that's also the primal spiritual battle, is forces that move towards creation and forces that move away from it. And so once you break it down to this primal factor, it's very clear for you. It becomes very easy for you to explore where you are in this journey. When if if thoughts of despair and violence and aggression are more dominant, then you've been influenced by these dark forces more. And no judgment, none needed, but realizing this can help you make better decisions. So that's all that we can do every day in baby steps. Move towards creation, move towards our own ability to co-create, which the qualities are love, our harmony, our joy, our excitement, are a sense of liberation and more sovereignty, creativity. Those are the qualities that we feel when we're on that path. And to deny the negative emotions doesn't help, by the way. They're part of our journey. They inform us about something about us. Accepting them, looking what they teach us, and then transmuting them, that's the way to go. Not thinking it makes us bad if we have a day of sadness or anger. It's not bad. It is informing us about something. So this is how you can literally break it down very simply. And if you want to find out more about your true state of being right now, I would encourage you to take a notebook early in the morning when you get up. Before you do anything else, sit down, take a few deep breaths, and just set the intention for honesty, right? That's all you do. You breathe into the center of honesty inside of you, and then you put pen to paper and write out whatever comes out. And what you read will give you a good overview of where you currently stand. Now, use that in the best possible way without any judgment. Judgment will never help you in this case. All right, my friends. Well, thank you for tuning in. We look forward to more shows to come, more podcasts to come for the time being. But know this is not forever. We're not going to do this forever. You're not going to be here in this space forever. For now, let's use it to the best of our abilities. Take steps every single day. Do what we can with what we have, where we are, to become the best possible version of ourselves. Much love to you all. Many blessings. Also, hop on over to inspired.locals.com. Many new posts. Christine is showing her garden starters that she's been cultivating over the last 2 months or so. It's all coming up, beautiful, and very soon it's going to go into the garden. And what a beautiful thing to see, when you sow a seed, that it grows. It's a beautiful thing. Love you all, and we'll be back with you again very, very soon.
Listen, right now you could be only a few clicks away from experiencing something amazing, something that has changed thousands of lives all over the world. I'm talking about a high consciousness field similar to those at pilgrimage sites and sacred places. It's where people go to heal, to connect, and to become the best possible version of themselves. With FLFE, you can bring such a high consciousness field into your home right now. It's a spiritual quantum technology based on the work of Nikola Tesla. Better sleep, more energy, greater well-being, improved finances, electrosmog mitigation. These are only some of the things people on the FLFE service are experiencing. Try it now for 15 days completely free of charge, no credit card needed. Just click on a link down below to start your free, no strings attached FLFE trial right now.